Welcome to the My Tennis Coaching Podcast, your go-to resource for all things tennis coaching. Stay tuned for insightful discussions and practical tips that will make a real difference on and off the court.
The wild west of tennis social media. If you are a player, a parent, or even a coach, today's podcast is quite an important one, I think, for you to listen to. And hopefully you're going to take a lot from it, from my crazy week of tennis social media. This is a change in scheduled broadcasting, as they would say on TV. I was going to discuss Nikolai Bernstein and the degrees of freedom, but it's been a bit of a crazy week on Instagram. And just to give you some context to it. So over the past couple of days, if you do follow me on Instagram at My Tennis Coaching, I have put out a few stories saying I am aware of a reel that has been remixed of mine, and a coach has offered some very strong opinions on my style of coaching. And I have addressed it, and please don't send it to me. It's been sent to me quite a lot of times. And I had lots of inboxes saying, oh my God, what was said? Are you okay? Are you upset? Don't let him get to you. Can you share it and stuff? And I put another story out saying, no, it's fine. Like, I just don't want people sharing it. And I'm not going to share the link and stuff because all the coach wants is views and links and clicks because he's selling the product. So I thought I'd just take today's podcast opportunity to sort of, first of all, discuss what went on in a bit more context. Very hard to do on an Instagram story. Two, why it matters and why it's quite important. And three, the impact it has on players, parents, and coaches. And it's not a positive impact as well. So first and foremost, I am fine. I'm not upset. When you educate and deliver a alternative way of coaching like I do, so I am all in on ecological psychology, ecological dynamics, constraint-led approach, and that methodology kind of contradicts and contrasts to the traditional view of isolated practice and demonstrations and technique being king. They're two contrasting things. So you have to understand that I do get challenged quite a lot of comments, a lot of inboxes, a lot of people sort of making judgment on my work, which again is fine. I've got no issue with that whatsoever. And part of what I enjoy about it is the debate, because I have confirmation bias. I believe that this methodology of coaching that I'm currently exploring and using and seeing on a day-to-day basis is really good and effective. However, when coaches offer a challenge, I embrace that because I have confirmation bias. I believe that my method works and other coaches believe their method works. And I like that debate. I like that discussion. That's the whole reason why I have these social media channels. It keeps me grounded. I like it when coaches ask me questions that I don't quite know the answer to. And a great question I got the other week was the role of memory. Well, how does memory work? And I went, you know what? I'm not actually too sure, but I'm going to go away and find out. So then I went away and spent a whole week researching ecological psychology and the role of memory. Like that's how I work and interact. And when I do coach workshops and stuff, and coaches offer me challenges, like again, well, how come every serve looks the same, Steve? Okay, well, I need to go away. I need to understand that more. And that's how I work. And that helps me as an educator and coach developer. So first and foremost, no issue. Like, I've got no ego. People going, like, it's not a case of, you can't say that about me. Oh, who are you to talk like that about me? Have you not seen my track record? Which we'll get onto in a few minutes. So I quite like the challenge, and I welcome the challenge as well, as long as it's respectful and it's not dismissive. And I try and be respectful too. And that was the framework. So I put a reel out a few weeks ago about players needing to be independent. It's like, players don't need me as a coach. So when I do my lessons, I try and set up the environment where the player solves problems. They have decisions to make. They make mistakes, and my job is to guide them. So when they play matches, they don't need me. Like, that's surely the role of a coach. And that's all the reel was. And I posted it out, and it was out there. And then earlier this week, I got loads of inboxes saying, oh my God, have you seen such and such? They've done a reel remix of you. And then Instagram showed me the notification. Your reel has been remixed by. And when the name flagged up, I knew exactly who it was. And it's I wouldn't say popular, but I've had discussion with him before. I'm surprised he remixed one of my reels, because last time we had the discussion, it was kind of obvious that there was a bit of a gap in experience and knowledge. So I'm quite surprised. And I've also seen that he put a couple of reels out of people who I like and I respect and follow, some younger coaches who are just starting their journey. And what's interesting, these younger coaches don't even follow like an ecological dynamics point of view. They're very much what I would class as a traditional coach. But I respect them because they're doing the best they have of what they know, and they're putting stuff out there, and they're brave to put content out there. And this guy attacked this couple of coaches the other week, and I sent the coaches a message saying, listen, don't listen to him, keep doing what you're doing, keep putting out the good stuff. Again, different method of my coaching. These coaches are definitely a traditional coach, and they're doing what they do, and they're really good at it. Perfect, great. So I knew exactly who it was. So I watched the reel back, and he's quite clever because he puts my reel at the start. So people think when they first see it, it's one of mine. Because again, I've got a very distinctive look about my reels these days. People hopefully will see it's my reel because of the style and the context. Like people know it's mine. So he's very clever because he'll let it play for the first 4 or 5 seconds. So Instagram thinks it's an engaging reel. And then he comes on screen. And he then proceeded to sort of say how stupid I was, basically, and how I was conning the parents out of money, and parents were trusting me to coach their children, and I wasn't doing my job properly. And just to give some context, again, I'm not going to share the reel. I'm not going to put a link to it or anything like that. It is out there. I'm sure it will pop up somewhere on your timeline so you can make your own opinion on it. And again, I've got no issue being challenged at all, but I'm just going to unpack some of the stuff that he said in the reel. I'm going to paraphrase a little bit as well. So apologies, I've not got it in front of me because I don't want to give it away too much because then people will search it, give him more clicks, and then he gets what he wants. So he basically said that my job is to teach. So first and foremost, I lead, they follow. So I'm the expert, I'm the controller. I tell players what to do, when to do it, how to do it. The player will not learn on their own. And we've unpacked this a lot on this podcast and through mytenniscoaching.com. Even last week's podcast on learning, that's not how learning's done. Learning's not done via explicit authority instruction. We looked at it last week. Taylorism doesn't work that way. It's not a comply and conform. Research and evidence shows us it's not the most efficient, effective way of learning. So first and foremost, he said something that doesn't actually ring true in any evidence or science. It's just his assumption. So that's the first thing. Then he was saying that if a player is failing, then he will just tell them what to do. And if a player doesn't listen 2 or 3 times, he'll get them to do press-ups. So again, this is another red flag. I'm thinking, so physical punishment, you're getting players to do press-ups because they are, quote unquote, not listening to you. So using punishment for not listening or not learning as a physical punishment, loads of evidence research out there to show that's not a very effective way, 1, to learn, or 2, to motivate. Probably bordering on physical and emotional abuse because you're punishing them physically and emotionally for, quote unquote, not learning. It may be a case, 1, you talk too much, 2, what you're saying is a load of rubbish, and 3, we know from evidence and research we don't learn a lot by listening, especially listening to someone who's just telling me how bad I am at tennis. So that was the second red flag. And then the third red flag was, oh, you're just conning parents. You're just conning parents out of money. Parents are trusting you with these kids and they're paying you lots of money and you're not even doing your job properly. And that's what annoyed me, because normally, like, I wouldn't respond to something as trivial as just someone remixing my reel. I've had it done before. It doesn't bother me. And I generally look at the account. Like, the first question I ask, what's the value? If I engage, what's the value? Like, am I going to get a good debate out of it? Am I going to get some good challenge and some good back and forth conversation? Normally, if it's a no, especially on Instagram, if it's a no, I don't know, just whatever. Fine, not that bothered. But the fact that he was saying that I'm conning parents out of money, that's what triggered me a little bit and got me off. Okay. And I replied respectfully. And I replied, as I always do, with evidence and research. Well, Bernstein shows that there's no one way to move. And I give lots of sort of examples of why explicit instruction doesn't exist. Again, use some scientific references and stuff as well. And I replied a nice long message and, okay, put it out there. And it respectful as a case of, okay, I'm just going to support what I said. I'm kind of going to challenge what you said a little bit. And then hopefully we can get into a bit of a conversation in the comments and then people can make their own mind up. And that's all I'm trying to do. And then he then screenshots it and then puts it on his story and says, "Oh, just look at the complicated reply." And I'm like, well, it's not complicated. I've just literally gone through how humans learn through interaction. They don't learn through instructions. And I understand that I use some scientific words like affordances and stuff like that. And he may not understand that part, which is okay. But then what I'm trying to do in that case, I'm not trying to stamp my authority and look how clever I am with all these big words. It's, well, can I open the door enough for you to get curious? Like, can I open the door enough to actually engage in a bit of a conversation here? But he dismissed it straight away and he didn't reply for a while. And then he replied saying, "You just have to look at my track record." I'm like, oh, okay. Okay. So track record's a great one. So it's confirmation bias, survivorship bias. And the guy, when I looked on his website, his claims of working with 300 national champions or 300 champions, and he produces lots of national champions. I'm like, oh, okay, this guy must be pretty good then. So I tried to find clips from coaching, couldn't find anything. Went on YouTube, found some clips, quite old clips to be fair. These clips were quite old. And I looked at his coaching because, okay, well, if he's produced lots of players, then hopefully like there's some really good stuff. And when you watch his coaching, and I can say this from two points of view, because one, I'm a coach educator. So my job is to educate coaches through qualifications that they have to pass or fail based on competency. So I can look at it from that perspective. He would not pass a coach qualification here in the UK from what he was coaching. Like, I'm not going to go into the whys, but the coaching was not at a level to pass a qualification, in my opinion. It definitely wasn't at, and that's a traditional point of view as well, like basket feeding, isolated practice, demonstration, communication, all that good stuff. The second thing that sort of really stood out was doesn't really coach. He just shouts a lot. And then when I look through quite a few reels, like the guy comes across as a bit of a bully to those players. Like he just basically belittles them and tells them they're wrong and stuff like that. So I'm then going, well, I don't think your coaching's produced these players. Your coaching may have been a part, but there's no evidence to show that coaching actually produces players because there's so many variables. Because I know it's crazy. Tennis players play matches with no coaching. They play a lot of matches without coaching, and they'll do lots of other different bits as well that sort of feeds into the ecosystem. You can't just say the coaching produces a player. I had this conversation with someone else on LinkedIn this morning. Like, you can't just say the coaching is the reason. Like, science and evidence can't prove that. You can't prove it. The science and evidence can prove the impact what certain coaching styles has. So you can't just say, look at my track record. But there was no like engagement with what I said. And then I said, well, okay, great. But then you're kind of now embarrassing yourself. So at least if you're going to discredit me or you're going to challenge me, at least come at me with some points, because I've just challenged what you've just said and I've backed it up with some evidence and research. At least come back at me and let's have a debate about it. And then he came back with, oh, I won't speak to you. I'll just speak to your players because they can just work stuff out themselves. And then I'm like, okay, now you're just really embarrassing yourself because you're not even getting involved in the conversation. Like you've called me out. Fine. No problem being called out. No problem being challenged. But now I'm pushing back a little bit on your claims. You're not going to push back. You're not going to sort of back it up. And all you've got is, oh, look at my success. Oh, it works for my players. Like, well, there's no evidence there. And looking at the stuff and looking at your coach, those two things don't really match up. So that was basically it in terms of the reel itself and the backwards and forwards. I then said to him, listen, how about you tell us how you coach then? Because it's obviously so successful. Share it, and then I'll have some questions on how you coach. But I'm going to use some science. I'm going to use some research because that's what I do. And it was just silence. And I sort of reflect on it. It's sort of over breakfast the next morning. And it was a case of, well, the guy's doing it for views. He's doing it for clicks. He's doing it for comments. Obviously, he wanted me to engage. And looking at some of his past ways of doing it, that's what he wants. He wants engagement. And then guess what? He then pushes his system, his 1-2-3 system. I'm always interested in systems. I am tempted to buy the system to sort of see it Let me know in the comments if I should buy it, and then we can maybe go through it on a live. But then he's just pushing his coaching system, which is fine. Listen, I've got no issues with coaches trying to make money from social media, but trying to make money by discrediting other coaches is wrong. And I know, listen, I've called coaches out before and I've commented on posts. I've never directly remixed a reel as such. I know I've done a few YouTube videos where I've looked at coaches' methods, and in hindsight, not the best idea. And I think I admit I was wrong in those moments, because I think coaches only know what they know, and most coaches are doing it with their best interests. I don't think this guy's doing it in the best interests of coaching or players. He's doing it in his own personal best interests. He's not doing it for the best interests of his players. So I know I've been guilty of doing it, and I've made a real big thing recently of not getting engaged on other coaches' content. And listen, I'll sit there on Instagram today and I'll scroll through for half an hour and I'll see 90% of just what isn't very good information. But the coaches are doing their best. And this sort of brings me on to the next bit about the dangers of social media. Because players and parents and coaches see this type of stuff, there's a pull now towards big social media accounts. And it was interesting because in the comments, one of the biggest tennis social media influencers commented on, "That's great advice, well said." And the danger is people look at that and go, "Oh, he's got X amount of followers. He must really know what he's talking about." Like, "Oh, he's got more followers than him. So, oh yeah, he must be a really good coach." Oh, we go on his website. Oh, look, he's got national coaches and he talks about how great he is and how many champions he's produced. Whereas I look at it from a coach educator and a coach developer point of view. I look at the level of coaching and I'm like, yeah, your coaching isn't that strong. And I say this from either an educational point of view in terms of competencies to pass a qualification, or I'll look at it from a scientific point of view. So human learning, human development, human movement, ecological psychology, like how you coach, does that actually fit the human? Because it's quite important you understand how humans work. And if it doesn't work, that's where the disconnect is. So I look at it slightly different. And people may go now, "Oh yeah, you're just saying that because you're jealous." I'm not jealous of anybody. Like, I've got no issue with people sort of making money or having big followings. But the danger is, like, people listen to that coach and there's quite a few comments going, "Yeah, well said, well said." And people will look at his reels and think, "Oh, he's produced national champions, allegedly. Therefore, shouting at a player, that's really good. Get my player to do press ups. Oh yeah, it works, it works." And it doesn't. Like I said before, that, like, I can't imagine, and I was thinking about this morning, I can't imagine going to work and my boss, shout out to Craig, walking up to me and going, "Oh, you're absolutely rubbish. I've told you that 3 times, get down and do press ups." I'm pretty sure me and Craig are having a bit of an argument. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm going to go, "What the hell? No." But we allow that for adults to do that to children. And we think that toughens them up and gives them discipline. And you've probably got a parent sitting on the bench allowing an adult to do that to your child because you believe it's in their best interest because it makes them a champion. Do we not see how crazy and just absurd that is? Like, if an adult spoke to me like that, we're having words and it probably won't end up very, very good. But he's allowed to speak to kids like that. And then he's also allowed then to sort of speak with other coaches and there's no repercussions. Even though I called him out, and again, the knowledge just got to him and he couldn't handle the information I gave him because he doesn't understand it. Because again, coaching knowledge isn't at the level at sort of what I'm talking. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. But parents will watch him and go, "Yeah, he's great." Parents go on his website and go, "Oh yeah, he's produced all these players, all these champions. Look at all the shiny medals they've won. He must be really good." And then he'll go to him and they'll invest loads of money. And I've said this before, for all the national players and international players that I've worked with or who've gone on to international tennis, they're few and far between. There's a few thousand players who didn't reach that level. And that's the survivorship and confirmation bias. Just because it works for one or two doesn't mean it's a method. And this 1, 2, 3 method works. I'll probably give it away now. So the 1, 2, 3 method, who it is. But parents buy into that. So the question is, well, who's the con man? Because obviously you've got me, who you're saying, who doesn't know what he's talking about, who understands human learning and human development and human movement. And then you're saying that doesn't work, but my way works. And people are investing in you. Who's pulling the wool over the players, or the parents and the players' eyes? And it's interesting because in the comments as well, he says, "Oh, these are cash cow coaches." And then you look at his social media, and he's driving a McLaren and a fancy sports car, and he's constantly talking about money. And you're like, this all doesn't add up. Like this doesn't look like someone who's really focused on his players. This really focuses on someone who's quite ego-centered, and it's all generally about him. And what was interesting as well was there's a coach in the comments who I know really well, and they commented on sort of the parents are innocent and well said. And it's quite interesting because that coaching question as well doesn't work where he used to work, because he got let go because his attitude and behavior towards players, shouting at players, telling the players they weren't very good, getting physical with players and grabbing their racket and shadowing lots of shapes, and kind of sort of going off what this other coach was saying in the reel, like discipline and hard work. And I know what it takes because I've worked at many academies. Quite simply, someone that I wouldn't trust with any player in the world. And again, I've seen parents courtside just sitting there listening to this coach shout abuse at their son or daughter because the coach understands what it takes. Even the coach has actually never worked with any top players, or they don't have any real methodology. It's just, it's a load of smoke and mirrors. And that's the danger. And the reason why I'm doing this podcast is, one, to just tell the story because people have been asking me to do my head in. But two, it's dangerous. Like, I'm not saying come to me and I'll make you a national champion, because I use a constraint-led approach, ecological dynamics. Because I actually don't know. I actually generally don't know. But I found, I've said it in a million videos, players respond to it. Players are more sensitive to learning. Players are more skillful. Players enjoy it more. I enjoy it more. That's all I need is evidence at the moment. And there's a growing body of evidence to show that it is more effective than a traditional way. A representative training environment is more effective than an isolated traditional environment. There's evidence to show that across multiple different sports. So when people say, yeah, but where's the evidence? Where's your champions? Like I said at the start of the podcast, just being a champion it's not enough evidence, because there's so many variables in play. And when you do any scientific experiment, you try and reduce a lot of that variability. And you have to understand that with ecological dynamics, like, we want variability. So there's a slight disconnect there. But it's dangerous. And if you're a parent or player, listen to this. A couple of things. Number one, do not trust everything that you hear and see on social media. And that includes me. I know that comes a bit condescending because I'm on social media here right now and you're listening to me. But you need to do your own research. You need to look into coaching methodologies. And there's a misconception with parents, because you think because someone's got a coach qualification, they know what they're doing. That's like saying because someone's got a driving license, they know how to drive. They've just passed a competency test at some point in their life. Doesn't mean they are fully skilled in how to communicate with your son or daughter. And I think you've got to look for sort of warning signs. Like, if your player gets upset and frustrated in the session, it's not that they're not trying hard enough or they're not listening. It's the method that the coach is using is not connecting. If your coach is shouting at your player and getting really frustrated, again, it's not the player's fault. It's the fact that the coach can't communicate and get their information across in a way that helps the player. And again, go back to my podcast last week about learning. Most coaches, unfortunately, are not educated on how humans learn. They're given frameworks of what a lesson looks like and how to go through a lesson. But in terms of human learning, they're not educated a lot on it. So if your coach is getting your player or son or daughter to do physical punishments, what are you playing at? What are you doing? Why are you allowing your son and daughter to go through that? For me, if my son went to a football lesson and the coach shouted at him, I'll be having words. If he made him do laps of the court or pitch, I'll be having words. If you make him do press ups, I'll be having more than words. I don't understand it. Again, we think about, goes back to last week's podcast, authority, teaching, and then in tennis lessons, you can do the same. Well, we now know that shouting at children doesn't really help. And people go, oh, you're just soft. It's not. Like, these are human beings. Like, in work, if I shouted at you, it's not the best way to motivate you or get you to do better. It's probably going to have the opposite effect. But we think with kids, it's fine. Just ridiculously and just stupidly absurd. And then if your players or kids, are having lessons and they're standing in line, or the coach is feeding them the same ball 100 times and they're showing them how to hit the perfect shot, you may want to look into that as well. Not the most efficient and effective way of your money. So the question truly is, who's the con man? The coach who understands how humans learn and move, or the coach who's probably using 1960s military style training? Pretty sure I know who I'd take my kids to. And I don't think it's right, just because they're children, that adults, coaches should be telling them what to do, when to do it, and how to do it. And if you're a parent and you stand up for that, and it's interesting because the coach I mentioned before, who I know personally and locally, parents are so bought into all that. They're bought into it. Oh, such and such is an error detector. They're a technical expert. This guy wouldn't know inertia if it hit him in the face. This guy does not know internal, external rotation. He doesn't know anything about how the body moves. He just knows buzzwords. And then he'll also talk about academies that allegedly he's worked at. No evidence that he has. He may have been there on holiday, or been on the court, or he may have actually worked there. But there's no evidence that he's actually done what he says he's done. You're buying into it. But you're leaving your kids with this person who has been, and again, I'll use the case, has been let go for behavior around players. And it goes back into that mentality of hard work and discipline and shouting. Just be careful. If you're a parent or a player, do some research into your coach. And the best question to sort of ask a coach is, why do you coach the way you do? And I ask coaches that question, and shout out to Stuart Armstrong because it's his question. Most coaches don't know. They coach based on how they were coached, which is irrelevant because the players aren't them. How they like to be coached, which generally is traditional and just basket fed and all the stuff we talked about. Or how they didn't like to be coached and they've gone the opposite way. Now, those coaches are generally ecological minded because most coaching is traditional and basket feeding. Then ask them what methodology do they use? What psychology do they use? Do they use cognitive psychology? Do they use ecological psychology? Are they player-centered or coach-centered? These are questions you should be asking. And I understand that parents might not know this as well and understand it. But they're the questions you need to ask because you're investing money and time, which are important. But more importantly, you're investing your child with these coaches. And you're allowing these children to be influenced and shaped and guided based on the principles and the values of these coaches. That's why it's dangerous. And I don't think parents do enough background checks and they don't see it enough. And parents goes back to, I gotta keep going back. Parents think back to education, authority figure, shouting, screaming, knows what they're doing, gets hard work, discipline. Not the most efficient, effective way for people to learn. Listen, I appreciate you listening to me rabbit on. I don't want to go and talk about it no more. I will continue to be challenged. I will continue to be curious. I will continue to have debates. And listen, I'm always open to chat. Like, Even if you completely disagree with me, send me a question, send me an inbox, challenge something that I say, and then have a conversation about it. But what I would say, and brings me on to sort of LinkedIn today, if you do challenge me and I don't buy into what you've said, and I may offer some alternative methods, don't think you can just force me and change me. And I get that all the time with people to send me loads of stuff, and then I'll push back a little bit, and then I'll get just accused of being arrogant and not listening. No, well, you're coming into my space, my inbox, or my feed, and you're trying to push your narrative on me. I'm not pushing it on you. You're choosing to interact with my content. You can block me. You don't have to follow me. You don't have to listen to me. You don't have to watch the podcast. Like, you're choosing to engage, which is good, because I think if you are engaging, it at least shows you're curious. But then don't try and like change my mind. Challenge me. Give me some tough questions, stuff that I need to go away and look at. And I will, like I said before, the whole thing about memory. Great question. Well, if we don't have memory, how do we remember? And they're two separate things, which I may unpack in a different podcast going forwards. As always, please check out next week's podcast. I will talk about Bernstein and the degrees of freedom. It will be pre-recorded because it's half term here in the UK. So I will be off with the family next week. So there'll be little social media interaction. And to be honest, after this week, I probably need some time off. And yeah, if you are interested in some more in-depth and debates, check out LinkedIn. Instagram, not the best place for in-depth debates. But listen, thanks so much. Please, as always, leave any comments or questions down below. And until next week podcast, have a good week and stay challenged.
Thank you for tuning in to the My Tennis Coaching Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe so you